Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Interesting is his story and what is in his core of what he's experienced, and it has made him who he is, and his work ethic and the importance of giving back to his employees and starting a foundation. And we'll kind of touch on a couple things as I had questions, but receiving award after award after award. His company's been around for 25 years. He founded his company. And not only that, he continues to receive a Great Place to Work award, and I think you've received 20 of them. So it's one of the greatest places to work here in Minneapolis.
That's what I said.
Yes, and also it is the largest training developing company tied in with a firm that will help you with your technical support that you need. So with that said, Tom, I'd like you to come up here if you could. And again, the amount of awards. I was talking to Tom, and I could go on for 6 hours. It's award after award. And so I actually pulled up the website, and I will show that at the very end. But I would like you.
It's all made up, you know that, right?
Yeah, no, that's not what your employees say. And what's really nice is some people were actually at your gathering for 25-year anniversary. And she said what was outstanding is what the employees were saying.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
My mom was there. You talked to her?
I didn't talk to her.
She isn't so kind.
So, with that said, just kind of wanted to start out with what made you you? This is a question that I always ask because everybody is made up differently based on the experiences that they had growing up. If it is a sibling or a neighbor or a teacher, what was it like? Who inspired you when you were young to realize that you're not going to go down this path, you're going to go down that path?
Sure. Well, I grew up on a family farm. It was a dairy farm, and so I was explaining to my son the other day that we worked every day of the week. And he's like, "You work Saturday?" I'm like, "Yeah, buddy, Saturday." "You work Sunday?" I'm like, "Yeah, buddy, you work Sunday." That I think, I was in an environment where it was unique, that I was able to work shoulder to shoulder with my dad every day. And I think, unlike my son, he can come to work, but he's more concerned about the vending machine and using my computer to draw things. And so growing up, I saw, what hard work was really all about. And I can say that it's a different kind of hard work when you shower at the end of the day versus the beginning. And in the 80s, there was a lot of challenge in farming, and I watched how my dad handled that. And the story that I like to tell people when they join us, to let them know that it's okay to make mistakes as long as your intent is right, is in college I was home over J-term. And J-term at where I went, St. Thomas, 2 out of the 4 years you had to take class, the other 2 you could do whatever you wanted. So I was working on the farm, and I was out cutting wood, and I had hooked up a log chain to a tree, and I was revving it and revving it and revving it. And then there was a pop, and I realized that I had the parking brake on, and I sheared the axle. So I thought my dad was going to kill me. And so I walked back home, and he kind of meets me. It was a snowy day, and he said, "What happened?" I told him. And he said, "If you did nothing, you'd make no mistakes." And that was really defining for me, because I thought, you didn't do the sackcloth and ashes, you didn't ask, the details, you just said, let's focus on making this better, and you made a mistake because you got work done. And when people join us, it's a story in orientation that I tell them, like, in an environment of execution where people are boots on the ground getting things done, if they know that they can make a mistake, as long as their heart's in the right place, it's an environment where stuff gets done. And so growing up, I would say my father, huge influence, and then I went to St. Thomas, and I didn't know really what I wanted to do, but I had an instructor my second semester who really made computers interesting. And this is back in the day when not everybody had a computer on their lap, and this was more the old school days. But what I found was that this was something that I had a gift for. And up until that point, I would say, whether it was sports or school in general, I was pretty average. But with this one thing, I felt like I really could wrap my mind around this and I could do well. And so those were the couple of things, my dad and then a professor.
So as you started going down the path after college, which I also saw that you were an instructor for St. Thomas as well.
I was.
And you've been involved in quite a few colleges. Harvard Business, you went there and did some studies.
Mm-hmm.
And what was intriguing to you as you were going through your different studies, enhancing your knowledge? I mean, were you continuing to go down the path of, I want to be in computers, I want to be helping people? Why did you start going down that path? You were stimulated because of your instructor, but more so, there had to be more to
Sure.
it than just that.
Sure. So my undergrad degree was in quantitative methods because computers were too new to call MET, which was basically math and computers. And I kind of knew I wanted to do my own thing. And so I applied and was accepted to the Carlson School MBA program. And at that time I was working full-time for a local larger company here. And I had the good fortune of a couple of events that kind of shaped what I was going to do next. One, as I mentioned, I was accepted into the Carlson School. We had a standard tuition reimbursement program, but my boss needed to sign off on it. And so I filled out the paperwork, I gave it to him. Some time passes, I said, hey, what's going on? He said, talk to my boss, which anytime he said talk to his boss, I knew the answer was not good. And I went and talked to him and he said, we just don't see you on a management track, Tom.
Ouch.
And which, if that had happened, if they had sent me and treated me really well, I would not be here today. And so without being too Pollyanna, it was a good thing that happened. I was like, forget it, I will pay for it myself and go nights and weekends. I did about a third of an MBA before. My joke is I was kicked out for drug use. The reality is I just was too busy to continue to do my MBA. And then another defining moment was at this organization that I was at. I worked in the security group, and so we built the system that helped control the 80 line of business applications, what the users of those things could do. And we had run up against a technical challenge, and we basically didn't have enough slots anymore to keep track of stuff. And we were building a new system, but the new system would not be done until we had exhausted all of the space in the old system. And again, this is a different world of programming, but back then bits and bytes mattered. And I thought about it and realized we were not using the sign bit in any number, which very small, but would get us beyond the goal line until the new system was going to be done. And so I told this to my boss, and he goes, that would work. We aren't using any of the sign bits. So we have a meeting, and it's my boss and his boss and people that had suits and had doors on their offices. And he goes on to say exactly what I said. And I was like, floored. I'm a kid from the farm. I'm like, is this the way the real world is? But that, along with the MBA thing, I remember the day I walked to my car, and I'm like, that's it. I'm doing my own thing. And there have been times, you mentioned I've done executive ed. I've done executive ed at Harvard and MIT. And one time, I was flying out to MIT, and my boss was on the plane. Okay, I've done my own thing now, and I'm flying out to take a class. And that night, I wake up in sweats in my dorm room, and I'm like, oh my Lord. I had a dream that everything failed. I had to go back to him, and he said we knew it wouldn't work. You're sitting over there. That was a dream, or a nightmare.
But see, I think that's what drives our entrepreneurship is when someone says you can't do it, or you're crazy, or no, you belong over there. Instead, the fire builds and you take control. And I was really intrigued with what you've done with your company, how you started out. And I love how you started out your company. And I'm not going to repeat what you shared with me. I'm going to have you tell them, where did your company start?
This is a rated R story. There are no kids here, right? I'm
it's
kidding.
Video.
It started on the back of my house. And so we had a small 800 square foot Rambler with 3 bedrooms. And one was an office for the first employee I had. The other was for me. And then I hired my brother part-time to do accounting and bookwork. And he did that in the living room. And when we started out, it was we did a 6-day work week. So we worked every Saturday. And I learned later, after going through marriage therapy, that was not a good idea to have my wife wake up and see my brother in the living room and see my partner working out of the other bedroom. So we did that for a couple, 3 years, and then we went to our first business address, which was such a disgusting place. Anytime a client would say, well, I'll just stop by and see you, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to be in St. Cloud tomorrow. I'm going to be in Stillwater tomorrow. I'll just stop by and see you. But yeah, it was out of the house, and the first digs were not good. We had railroad tracks that were about 100 yards off of the back of where the office was. And there were a couple clients I knew well enough that I could tell them, hey, this is where we are. And when one of them would hear the train coming over the telephone, he'd be like, call me back in 10 minutes. So that's how we began.
Well, and what's neat about that is we're in search of successful entrepreneurs that start from the very beginning and bootstrap and go through, the pains and trying to understand, even though you were very smart and you have a wonderful college background, and you've had an opportunity to meet, hundreds of wonderful people, you still are a Minnesota boy. I mean, you were at St. Thomas, you started the foundation in 2003, which I think is absolutely amazing. I want you to talk a little bit about that, because I think that says a lot about you as well.
Sure. So in 2003, actually before that, my wife and I were talking about giving back. And so we created a foundation that is a separate nonprofit entity from the firm. The firm is the main funding sponsor, and from that point until now, we give families that are staying at Ronald McDonald House, if they're there and they need money to pay bills or respite care or whatever, we gift money to the family. And up until a few years ago, we used to volunteer down there a few times a year to throw parties for the kids. We've shifted some of our volunteering now to a couple of different things, but we continue to support the families that are there financially.
And you're also supporting young people who want to learn how to program.
Yes, we started
technology.
Yeah, exactly. We started a scholarship a couple of years ago, and it's a $2,500 scholarship for someone entering STEM. And the people that have been applying are just unbelievable. I mean, when I was in high school, I was looking to slide by and drink beer. And these are people that are volunteering. They've got a startup. They've got a 4.0. They're the captain of whatever. I mean, the thing that amazed me was how hard it was to pick the recipient because of the quality of people that are applying. And so the first recipient was a woman with a great story, and she's going to Stanford. And the second recipient, her story was wonderful as well. She's looking to combine, kind of music and computers in a new way to do therapy. But really amazing people that are applying for it.
That's fantastic. So within your industry, in this technical industry, what do you think is really hot right now? What are you hearing? What's the buzz?
Well, definitely, I mean, there are all the names you think of, like big data, IoT. I think cloud and software as a service continues to be there, but at least in the application development space, it's not as big as it is to be just a user of those existing applications. But those would be a few that I would say.
Okay. And so now here you live in Minneapolis, and as your company is continuing to grow, do you see yourself going outside of the Twin Cities, or do you see yourself continuing to stay Minnesota bound? And if so, why?
Sure. Well, our mission for the company is to have 150 employees and sales of $50 million. Right now, we've got all in under the Intertech umbrella about 70-some folks. And that number of 150 comes from Malcolm Gladwell's A Tipping Point, where he said that once you grow beyond that, people kind of feel disconnected. I really prize my balance of home life and work life. I don't have a desire to be on a plane or start a location somewhere else. So for now, mission where we're headed is 150 folks, but it's here in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Nice. Well, and you talk about home, how important it is. What was interesting a couple months back when I came out to meet with Tom and get to know him a little bit better and understand his vision. And when I walked into his building, which was a very nice big building, it was homey. And what was even more amazing is there was some artwork that was not only in the lunchroom, a very large piece of art, but also in the entrance, a beautiful piece of art. And you knew how important it was to him because he showcased it and also showed it to me and told me who had done it. It was his children. And I just thought that was very important, that you're not only bringing family into, but you're also supporting the families, you know, out there as well, not only just your own family.
Yeah, we really try to roll the families into things that we do. If we have an employee that has an anniversary, the family's there. If we, on the first Friday of every month, if it's warm enough, we do a barbecue. If it's Minnesota weather in the winter, we're getting subs or pizzas. Family is invited to those things. And you know, to kind of follow through in that work-life balance for employees. Every 7 years, they get a 3-month sabbatical where they can call a sabbatical, but they really can do whatever they want. There's no, it's not like an academic sabbatical. And then we also have a really flexible work-from-home policy. And on day one, when someone joins us, we give them $1,500 to equip their home office. And we give them a laptop and all other stuff, but we give them $1,500 on top of that, so they can build out what they need at home, whether it's a standing workstation or whatever, so they're as effective at home as they are inside of our walls.
Okay, so this video will be going out to the entire Twin Cities, so you will be getting some applications, I'm sure.
Sounds wonderful.
So, you know, what was also intriguing to me was you had written a book, and you want to talk a little bit about the book that he's written. It's inspiring because there's a lot of great stories, a lot of great sayings in here, but also, for instance, on the very back, if you're familiar with entrepreneurship, a bank that's very famous here, or well used, is Sunrise. And it was the CEO that indicated that this is the Bible for entrepreneurship, you know, and for him to actually state that, I think that is really goes far. But not only that, I want you to talk about why did it inspire you to write this?
Well, first off, the Sunrise Bank guy, he's an atheist, so it's easy to say that. I'm kidding, he's a friend of mine. You know, this is actually my third book. I wrote a business book, I wrote a kid's book, and then a couple, 3 years ago, shot the manuscript for basically a second edition of my first book. And on my first book, which was a lot of the fodder for the second book, it really began with me putting together something that we could give new folks that joined us, so I could say, this is how we do things here. And when I started doing that, I realized that a lot of the challenges and stuff that I was outlining in the way that we run our firm, it was really applicable to a lot of different organizations. And so that's where the book started from, and I had a life goal to have a non-self-published book, which is this one here. And so I added some new things that I've learned in the past 5 or so years. There's about a dozen sections on life planning, like how do we create the life that we want? You know, having a life mission, understanding what our code of conduct is, the importance of really clarity around goals and balance across all our different parts of life. I added that in, as well as best places to work, great places to work. A question I get a lot is, so if you're not filling out these surveys yourself and your people are doing it, how do you win these things back to back? And so I really share the recipe that we've used with our firm to integrate stuff that employees are telling us, as well as understand all those different categories that we need to be getting right with our employees to have them rate us as they do.
So, because of the successful foundation that you've built, at what point was the tipping point? From a financial standpoint, tell us a little bit about that. What did you go through?
Sure. You know, when we first started out, I just wanted to get away. As I said, I just wanted to do my own thing. And I hired a couple people, and it was more like a couple of attorneys or a couple of accountants working together. And then I hired a couple of people that really were instrumental in my thinking and had more of a growth mindset. And we went from sales of like 200,000 in 95 to 2 million in 2000. So we grew tenfold. And we were in the Inc. 500 back-to-back years, and I was really proud of what we had done. And I have a board member who was my cousin, and we had a meeting, and he said, "You're doing a bad job." And I thought he was joking. And he's like, you're growing, but you're not making money. That's the purpose of a business, Tom. The purpose of a business is to have predictable profitability. And I would say it was that conversation that really got me thinking about, being as focused on profitability as I was focused on growth. So I did things like set up new comp plans for a couple of my sales leaders to say, I will give you up to 10% of our pre-tax profit if you can grow us by these numbers. And so grow my business and not do it profitably, you get nothing. Don't grow my business, but with lots of profits, you get nothing. The two need to go hand in hand. As well as institutionalized company-wide variable comp. I didn't take anything away, but I said, hey, if we have more, we can share. And so this is what it means for all of us when we hit these pre-tax profit thresholds. And then like most things, after the goal was set, we talked about it a lot. We gave updates on it a lot. We shone a big light on it when things were going well. And so I would say it was the conversation in that board meeting that got me thinking that we need to be focused on profit. And today, based on data that we get in our industry, our bottom line is 2.5 times what our competitive set is. And it just makes you sleep better at night when you've got that kind of performance, because you're not scraping by, and if there are hiccups or problems, money doesn't always solve it, but it does.
Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask Tom?
Tom, a couple things. I'm always curious. So you worked in your house. Sounds like your cousin was in there?
My cousin was a board member.
Oh, okay. Were you making money from day one enough to support you? I don't know if you had a family at that time, but you had a house.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I think that I decided to try, because my wife and I were married, no kids. We were in a very modest house. I remember one of my friends came over with his wife, and she looked around and she goes, "I can't believe you live here." I'm like, you should think these things, but not say them. And we had a couple of used cars. One of them was so rusty. I remember when I would go to a client's site, I would park in the far corner and just walk over. They didn't want to be seen with that car. And so...
This is a pattern.
Yeah, I'm cheap. And so, our expenses were super, super low. And I remember my first desk, we had Knox, which is now a defunct lumber company, but there was like a Home Depot just across the road. And I went over there and I bought stuff and I made a desk. And being a moron, I never thought about if I ever wanted to move this desk, if it's so big it can't get through the door, that's not going to work. And today, in the world of, people want standing workstations and ergonomic chairs and whatever. I spare people the story because they're tired of hearing it, but I remember sitting on 2 telephone books because my chair was too low for my desk. So, yes, from the get-go, it was profitable, but, really as a service business, I didn't have to fund inventory. To a certain extent, there's funding at AR, and clients, if they want to draw you out, that can cause some cash crunch. But back in those days, the people I was working with, I was seeing a lot, and they probably felt awkward if they weren't paying me. And so, yes, from day one, it was profitable. And there was a question earlier about how I cash flowed, or did I do funding, or did I raise the capital? And the answer is no. It was all financed through internal profit.
So like banking relationship?
Well, yeah, today we have a banking relationship. We have a fairly significant line of credit that we can draw into if AR is growing at a good clip. But we continue to be, minus the building that my partner and I own and some other commercial stuff, debt free.
So the last question I have is, when did you At what point did you just all of a sudden forget that you were trying to start up and that all of a sudden you just had a different thought for even a brief moment? You know, that moment when you realize this thing might happen.
Sure. I think those in that period of time from 95 to 2000 where we were experiencing a lot of growth. I mean, back in the day, like everyone can relate to, I did everything. I sold it, I did it, I built it. You know, it was all me. But between 95 and 2000, when we had that growth, I realized that this thing's changing now. It's no longer, I can't be in the trenches actually doing the hands-on work. And that was a little bit scary because I always felt like my street value, if stuff hit the fan, at least I had technical skills that I could fall back on. So in that time, I think is when I kind of let go and focused on running the business instead of working in the business. And around that same time, to the question you asked earlier, is when I was like, if this is what I'm going to do, I should understand what I'm doing. So I went through, back then I was in a group called YEO, now it's just called EO, but they had a 3-year program called The Birthing of Giants for fast growth firms, and it was a week a year for 3 years at a campus in MIT. And I followed that up with a 2-year program at MIT, and then a professional services firm leadership course at Harvard. And so I kind of balanced out for myself.
Just imagine, right? My husband is like, and he's the only earner, and he's earning. Then he's starting off in the back of the house. I would like freak out. So how did you like kind of, was your wife working?
Yes, yep, my wife was working, and that's where, like, for my medical benefits, when I first started, that's where I was getting them from. And within, like, 2 months of starting, she had this very significant back problem. They weren't sure if she maybe had, like, MS. Our water heater broke, and there was water over the basement. Everything seemed to be, like, God saying, don't do this. And, you know, that was a long time ago, so we both were in our 20s, and it definitely was very challenging because, you know, I grew up in a family where Dad worked all the time. You know, he wouldn't come in until it was dark, and he left in the morning when it was dark, and yep, he'd come in for lunch, but it was 7 days a week, and she worked, or she grew up in a family where Dad was home every day at 4:15. And so, you know, anytime that families blend, when you get married, you know, you kind of bring what you know. And so there definitely were a lot of challenges there because what I was doing, and, you know, today life is super balanced for me and I have tons of time with my wife and my kids. But back then, I remember our first wedding anniversary, I told her, buy yourself a gift and take out because I got work to do. That was a mistake. That was.
If you've learned nothing else.
Yeah, that's the takeaway tonight. You know, but I think we were committed to each other to make it work, and yeah, I think, you know, I'll spare you the details, but, you know, there definitely were a lot of challenges. But I'd say mainly it was as much family of origin, like what we kind of both thought life was like as a married couple versus just the amount of the ton of work it takes to get a company up and going. Sure.
I'm just curious to visit your office. Is there a facility where we can sneak a visit? Just no wipes?
Sure. Just give me a call afterwards, and yeah, you bet. Because you saw the artwork, but we have. If I'm meeting with a customer and I can tell they're kind of on edge, I'll play with that further. I'm like, I actually commissioned 2 pieces of works of art for our office, and I know the artist personally, and they'll be like, this guy, what an asshole, talking about this. And then I'll say, and then there's a little bio by each picture. Like my son, there's a picture of him hugging our Doberman, and, you know, stuff that, like, a verbiage about his background as an artist. And my daughter she's suffocating our cat and almost killing it. It's the photo that she has by her print. But I'd love to show it to you. Yeah.
Yes?
what are a couple of things that you do to, as you grow, to be sure that the culture has your fingerprints on it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, one, we're really crystal clear about what our values are. And for me, that's what culture means. And I think if those need to be true points of difference, like if we said we're honest, well, honest, maybe if you're a pawn shop would mean something, but not in my world. And the three values we have are attitude, commitment, and excellence. For attitude, we talk about this is contagious, life is short, we need to be positive. For commitment, and this is the big one in software, we say, I will demand more of myself than you could ever ask of me. And then excellence, we look for a customer sat rating. Are you happy? Would you use this again? Would you refer us to others? Of 99.5%, which means 1 out of 200 people, 1 out of 200 customers are going to say no. And we begin in the interview process talking about that's who we are. And we try to beat it into the candidate's head that if this is not what you're about, this is not a place that's going to be a good fit for you. Every week in our company newsletter, we give everyone the ability to recognize other people for living our values, for going the extra mile, for having a positive attitude and stuff was hitting the fan. Once a month, we have an all-company meeting. At that meeting, we go through our values. We talk about here are the 3 guiding principles we use to run the company. So along with giving updates around our strategic goals, we say stuff like around values over and over again. And I would bet dollars to donuts if you bumped into a new hire at a firm a month into it and said, what are the values of this firm? They'd say ACE, attitude, commitment, and excellence. And then from time to time we make mistakes. We hired one of every 20 people that apply for a job. And the tough fires are somebody that's a rock star, but they don't share like our attitude. You want to dump on other people? We will have you go do that somewhere else. And I think that also reinforces to people that this is more than lip service. This is something that we truly live the firm by.
Excellent. Excellent. Does anyone else have any questions that they would like to ask?
He stole my question, but I have a follow-on question. So now you live those values and you understand that that's critical to the culture. But how long did it take you to crystallize that? Because you knew it intrinsically at the beginning, but how long did it take you to figure out that this was the core and the crux?
Sure. And those weren't the values that we started with. At first I had like 7 or 8. And someone would say, what are the values? And I'd be like, well, and I would kind of think of it. And I'm like, if I can't quickly say this is what it is, how can I expect people to? And so we did, if anybody here is familiar with the Jim Collins, the Martian exercise, this is maybe a dozen or 15 years ago. I said to folks, we've all kind of got a different idea about what the core things are that we believe in. And so what I want you to do is I want you to pretend that Martians are going to come here and they're going to follow 3 people around. And by following those people around, they'll know what we believe in, what we're about as a group. And for those 3 people that you chose, tell me 3 adjectives that describe them. Why did you say follow that person, follow that person, follow that person? So we did that for everyone in the firm. We got we got the feedback. We kind of got rid of the outliers. We got rid of the things where maybe, honesty, integrity, blah, 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 that showed up a lot, but we're like, this is not a point of difference. And when we were done, we had themes around attitude. The people here are positive. We had themes around, I can trust you to deliver. And we had themes around, we are holding ourselves to a high standard. And then we were lucky that we were able to get an acronym out of it, because I think it really makes it easy for people to remember it. And what I didn't mention before is we also gamify it. So in January of every year, we recognize who was the top person last year to receive the most ACE nominations, who was the top person last year that took time to recognize other people, and who was the top rookie, someone who's been with us for less than a year, but they've received the most ACE nominations, being recognized for living our values. Yes?
I just like to make a comment. I admire your company and the people that feel good enough about each other to really recognize each other. Because so many corporations try that, and it's a dismal failure.
Yeah, and not to beat up my first and only boss, but I think he felt if I say something good about you, to all of you, and there's an opportunity for promotion, then you're going to say, well, it should be Lauren, because all this good stuff was said about her. I think creating that environment where people know it's really encouraged to recognize each other. And to follow on that, got tied back to them saying, you're not going to we won't reimburse you for an MBA. We use Dale Carnegie key result areas to kind of manage everybody. It's a tool for doing one-to-ones. But everybody in the whole organization has a learning goal. And I've told people, at the end of the year, if we hire no one, we should be stronger as an organization for the investments we've made throughout the firm in our people, in training and development.
It's almost as if you should be conducting a course to other CEOs here in the cities, because you've been consistent with not only your personal growth within your family, within your business, within your mindset, your education. You've continued to go forward, but not only you're tying that into your successful business. So I think there's a lot of, I think there might be an opportunity, just a thought, to maybe...
You're hired.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm running my own business. I can't do that. No, but I'm serious. I think there is many CEOs that are so busy running their business that sometimes they may forget what's going on the ground. And I think what you've put in place is your peers, the employees, they're continuing to remind each other how amazing they are. It bubbles up, and you're able to, acknowledge that and be one as a whole. So I just think that's really unique, and I think that's very special.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions that you can think of? We understand that you bootstrapped this internally. You were able to grow. You added employees. You've done some amazing things. Your employees are extremely happy. It's not just underneath the roof that understands how successful you are, but it is the Minneapolis St. Paul Journal. It is the Star Trib. It's people are well aware of the successful things that you're doing. So I just want to thank you very much for the opportunity for you to invest your time to not only have this video to share with people that were not able to be here, but the people that are here in the room that invested their time. And you have a question?
I do have a question. Where do you see it going?
Well, mission, as I said, is to grow to 150 employees and 50 million in sales. And tied to that, I would say maybe just where I'm at in my life personally is to do it with sanity. That growth for growth's sake, I don't really want. Or today, for the different positions on the leadership team, it was such a talent upgrade to replace the jobs that I was doing in marketing or overseeing our finances with people that some I'm surprised would join me. That having those people in place makes it so I can do things like 2 days a week I work from home, and I am pretty strict on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I don't take appointments with anybody because it's time I'm going to have lunch with my kids or pick them up from school because I want to be there. And going forward, that's worth as much to me as more money. And there is a point that you reach where it's like, I kind of have most of the stuff I want. You can only eat so much food and drink so much wine and go on so many trips. Life is good. I'm going to continue to grow the firm, but let's do it with sanity so that myself and really people throughout the organization can have that balance in their lives between work and home. Yes?
That brings up a great question. A lot of firms don't have a good succession plan. Not implying that anything's going to happen to you.
Do I not look well? I'm wearing a light foundation. I think that's what's doing it.
It's just an issue with a lot of firms.
Sure. Yeah, I own 80% of the firm. I have 4 partners who own the balance. And as far as the day-to-day, running of the firm, I'm not involved with that. And for the partner I have that really runs the majority of the firm, as well as the others, we have buy-sell agreements. And for the more significant dollars, it's backed by life insurance policies, so it won't be undue stress to the firm if I got hit by a truck. And we're a little overinsured too, so if we needed some additional firepower in that interim period, that we could do that. But today, the plan would be that partner that really is running the majority of the firm, he would be the one to take over, and the funding would be done by a life insurance policy. And he and I are not afraid to debate, but most of the time, and this was very true when I was thinking about putting him into the role he is today, I would say, this happened, what do you think we should do? And what he came back with most of the time was spot on with what I would think we should do. And today when we have leadership meetings, if there's something that comes up, he's almost like one of those catchers that's doing hand signals to me, like, yes, do what Loring is saying, and don't do that idea. So we really see eye to eye.
So you were talking about work-life balance and being married and trying to grow your firm while still, keeping your sanity. So for us young guys who are 23, 24, 25, building our companies, 22, 24, building our companies. So is it more acceptable to say grind out 7 days a week, 80 hours a week, whatever it is, to get our business up and running? What's your advice on that?
I can just talk about my experience. And my experience to get going was some of the stuff you're talking about. That it really took took a ton of work to get things going, but it's kind of like a flywheel, that once that thing gets in motion, it really possesses a power unto itself. And I cannot imagine myself or the hours that you're talking about doing that and having a family, just having children, because it's that the role of a parent is so important. You have to be there, you have to be present. And so to answer your question, if you're at a point in life now where you can do it and you have passion about it and you can't believe the day's over, when the day's over, you're like, that flew by, now is the time to do that. Because if you fast forward however many years and you have a spouse and kids and the home's a little bit bigger and the cars are a little nicer, it's a little harder to bootstrap.
Curious and growth. Given that you have a strategic goal for employee number and number, I guess, it would be one thing to just push for that, just to achieve something and say, this is what we want to do. So I'm curious if you have kind of a number that you're watching that you say, okay, this is the time that we want to take on another employee, or is it more the quality, to kind of know every employee is going to bring this much to the table, or?
Sure. A question about hiring. How do we decide when to hire people?
Yeah, and maybe aren't applicable yet, so what's going to do back to work, and a good way to decide.
Sure. For salespeople, we hire 1 out of every 40 people. For developers, we hire 1 out of every 20. And so to have that amount of people applying to get one position, we're always in a hiring mode. We have an 8-step process. Every step is a gate, so we don't do 2 at once. You do one, we evaluate you. We do the next, we evaluate you. Great salespeople are worth their weight in gold, and so even if things were tougher, we definitely would be hiring them. In our business, which is we're working on projects for customers, we are very aware of where our utilization is and what our forward utilization is. And so if there were times, or when there have been times where we look forward, we're like, we have 2 teams that are rolling up their project, and when they hit the bench, we're going to have a lot of folks to redeploy to new projects. What we have done in the past, we've had a candidate that's made it to the end, we're just honest with them. We say, this is what's happening. We've got 2 different teams that are on sizable projects that are wrapping up. We like you. You're one of the few that made it to end. What we want to do is in 2 months, talk to you about an offer. Because between now and then, it's all hands on deck redeploying the team. And for the right candidates, they get it. And for the ones that say, I can't wait, because when we're talking about a relationship as an employee, even if they're with us for a year, it's a couple thousand hours. So if we can't wait, a week or a month or whatever, it probably isn't a good fit. Yes.
So how do books fit into your business and in your personal life? You obviously have a passion.
You mean like writing?
Writing.
Well, the first one that I wrote, that was 5-6 years ago, as I shared, it really was, I was trying to outline for people how we do stuff here. And when I saw all the stuff I was doing, I'm like, this is pretty close to being able to create something that I could publish. My second book, I did a couple years ago and hired an illustrator, and it was, it's about manners, and it was written with my kids as the main characters. So I thought it'd be kind of a kick to have them see themselves in a book that you get on Amazon. And they're kind of funny because they just think this is the way life is. It's a book about me, it's no big deal. And then when I thought about revving the first book to what is now the 100, I engaged a consultant and said, I'd like to give it a shot to see if this is something that a publisher would be willing to go into a partnership with me and maybe give a little bit of money up front and a royalty on it. And then there were a bunch of groups that said no, because it's a crowded space, and I don't pay my rights or lease with the book. I give them away to people like you. But I found a great publisher out of Chicago. From our initial talks to when we were negotiating, I'm like, you think the same way that I think. There were other ones that were like, Tom, we want to have you on a plane every other week. And I'm like, I am not Malcolm Gladwell. I'm just a guy. And I don't want to give up my life for a book. And so they were very like-minded. And I love to read. And right now, I don't have any plans of something else as far as a writing project that can change. Yes.
So what are some of your favorite business books that you've read and have shaped you or something?
Sure. I love the E-Myth. And I think the E-Myth by Michael Gerber kind of describes where I am today, or Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret. Both of those books kind of have the same, a similar theme. That, one, we become what we think about. So our thoughts are very important, and if we're intentional about those, it can manifest great things in our life. Michael Gerber said the purpose of a business is to give life, not take it. And I think if it's always about money, wake up someday and say that, I had a business and I made lots of money, but now I've got no friends, a divorce, and kids who will not talk to me. A great book that I like that has nothing to do with business is called What Happy People Know. And it was a study of what are those common things that people that really have a fulfilled life share. And the big three are relationships, purpose, and appreciation. I'm a big fan of Vern Harnish. When I went out to MIT, this is before he wrote his first book, and the stuff he was teaching us out there was what he rolled into his book, The Rockefeller Habits. And so those are just a few of my favorites.
Any biographies of any prominent business people?
I've read, I really liked Giuliani wrote Leadership, and it was after 9/11, and he had some really great insights there. And there are things I think that I've held true to, what I do. And one thing he said was, weddings are optional, funerals are mandatory. And as a leader, when stuff hits the fan for our people, really being there for them, really, understanding them and providing the support that they need. And if you're around for a very long time, I mean, you're going to see a lot of stuff. And there's going to be death, messy divorces, a lot of different things. And when we do it out of sincerity. We're not doing this because we want people to remember us, but the reality is they do. And I also, a leader, but this is quite a while back. There was a book called An American Life, and it's about Benjamin Franklin, and it's just a fascinating read.
So any last advice that you'd like to close with?
I think I'm done with advice. Thank you. Thank you very much.